The courtroom was silent, save for the hum of alien machinery and the faint echoes of whispered judgments. Towering above the lone human diplomat stood the Galactic Council, an assembly of the most powerful alien species in the known universe. Their faces were inscrutable, their expressions unreadable to human eyes, yet the air was thick with disdain. To them, humanity was a fledgling race, brash and audacious, undeserving of a place in their exalted circle. The diplomat stood tall, dressed in the formal suit of Earth's representatives. He was no soldier, no warrior, yet his shoulders bore the weight of a war already brewing. "My people seek peace," he began, his voice steady but firm, "but peace cannot exist without justice. And justice cannot exist in a trial where the verdict was decided before it began." The words rippled through the chamber, their meaning cutting sharper than any blade. The council stirred, not in agreement, but in annoyance. A figure from the council, a being with translucent skin that pulsed with an inner light, raised a long, spindly arm. "Human," it intoned, its voice resonating like chimes in the wind, "you stand accused of breaching the interstellar concord, of violating sacred boundaries, and of inciting rebellion among lesser species. How do you plead?" The diplomat's jaw tightened. "I plead that these charges are fabricated," he said, his eyes scanning the alien faces before him. "Humanity has adhered to every treaty, every law. If rebellion stirs among the oppressed, it is not because of us, but because of your tyranny. You use this council as a weapon to maintain power, not as a platform for justice." A murmur spread through the assembly, a sound like rustling leaves in a storm. Some of the alien delegates exchanged glances, their gazes filled with unease. Others leaned back in their seats, their contempt evident. The presiding judge, a towering being with a metallic exoskeleton, struck a staff against the floor, silencing the room. "Enough," it said, its voice metallic and cold. "You overstep, human. This is not a debate. This is judgment." The diplomat clenched his fists, but his face remained calm. "Judgment without evidence is tyranny," he replied. "And tyranny breeds rebellion. You call humanity a threat because we dare to speak when others are silent, because we dare to dream when others surrender. You fear us, not for what we've done, but for what we represent." The judge's mechanical eyes glinted. "You speak as though your defiance will alter the outcome," it said. "But words are wind, and wind cannot shake the pillars of the galaxy." The verdict came swiftly, delivered with the cold efficiency of a machine. "Guilty on all counts," the judge declared, its voice reverberating through the chamber. "The punishment is death. Effective immediately." A gasp echoed from the edges of the room, not from humans, there were none other present, but from a few alien representatives who had dared to hope for leniency. The diplomat's face remained impassive, though a flicker of sadness crossed his eyes. Not for himself, but for the message this act would send to his people. As guards approached, their alien forms bristling with weapons, the diplomat straightened. He was led to the center of the chamber, where a single platform awaited, its machinery gleaming under the cold light. A noose, made of shimmering metallic fibers, descended from the ceiling. The council watched in silence as the diplomat was prepared for execution. He did not struggle, did not plead. Instead, he raised his voice one final time. "To my people," he called, his voice carrying strength even in the face of death. "Do not mourn me. Remember this moment. Remember that justice must be fought for, that freedom comes at a cost. They fear us because we will not bow." The noose tightened. The platform beneath him vanished, and for a moment, there was only the sound of silence, heavy and suffocating. The diplomat's body hung motionless, a stark symbol of the council's dominance. The judge's voice broke the stillness. "Let this serve as a warning to humanity. Defiance will not be tolerated." Unbeknownst to them, the warning would not serve as a deterrent. It would become the spark of a fire they could not extinguish. Far away on Earth, the broadcast ended, the image of the diplomat's lifeless body fading to black. In a secure chamber, Earth's leaders sat in grim silence, their faces hard and unyielding. The president, A woman with eyes that burned with quiet fury rose from her seat. "We have been patient," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 1 billion souls. "We have sought peace. But they have left us no choice." Around the room, heads nodded in solemn agreement. The decision was unanimous. The message was clear. Prepare for war. The execution sent shockwaves across Earth, uniting its people in a way no event had ever done before. Grief and fury turned into resolve as the broadcast of the diplomat's final words played on every screen, sparking a fire in the hearts of billions. The Council had underestimated humanity's capacity for unity under adversity. Where divisions once existed, they crumbled, replaced by a single, unwavering purpose: survival through resistance. World leaders convened immediately, forming a coalition unlike anything seen in human history. The barriers of nations, ideologies, and rivalries dissolved overnight. Resources were pooled, plans were made, and humanity's brightest minds were mobilized. In hidden bunkers, scientists and engineers worked around the clock, dissecting alien technologies obtained from previous encounters. Reverse engineering these devices revealed weaknesses in the Galactic Council's infrastructure and their dependence on outdated, centralized systems. What was once humanity's disadvantage, limited technology, became an opportunity to innovate. Factories that once produced commercial goods were converted to churn out weapons and starships. Engineers designed modular ships, adaptable and efficient, capable of outmaneuvering the Council's massive, cumbersome fleets. AI systems were developed to predict alien strategies, leveraging humanity's unpredictable nature as an advantage. Soldiers were trained in zero-gravity combat, preparing for scenarios far beyond Earth's atmosphere. As preparations accelerated, a discovery tipped the scales further. A small alien faction, oppressed under the Council's rule, reached out to humanity. This group, a coalition of 3 minor species, had been watching Earth with interest. They provided intelligence on the Council's weaknesses, outdated supply chains, vulnerable outposts, and dissent among its member species. In exchange, they sought protection and a promise of freedom. Humanity agreed, forging an uneasy alliance that gave them a critical edge. Despite the Council's superior technology and vast resources, their arrogance left them vulnerable. They dismissed humanity as primitive, assuming Earth's retaliation would be nothing more than a desperate, doomed effort. This miscalculation proved fatal. Humanity thrived in adversity. Where the Council relied on tradition and established systems, humanity embraced chaos, innovation, and the element of surprise. On Earth, every citizen contributed. Volunteers swelled the ranks of the newly unified military. Civilians worked tirelessly to support the war effort, whether by producing supplies, maintaining infrastructure, or simply ensuring life continued as normally as possible for those who would fight. Even children learned of the diplomat's sacrifice. Their education focused on the principles of freedom and justice. The execution that the Council intended as a message of dominance had become a rallying cry. The diplomat's final words, recorded and replayed endlessly, became the anthem of a species determined to rise. As Earth mobilized, the Galactic Council remained blind to the storm brewing. In their chambers, debates about humanity's potential retaliation were met with scoffs. "They are insects," one council member proclaimed. "Their reach does not extend beyond their own system." But quiet voices of dissent began to emerge among the Council's ranks. Some warned that humanity's defiance should not be taken lightly. Others pointed to humanity's rapid adaptation, a trait rarely seen among the galaxy's more stagnant species. In the darkness of space, humanity's fleets began to take shape. Modular, adaptable, and packed with experimental technology, these ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Where the Council's ships were massive and slow, built for intimidation, Earth's vessels prioritized speed, stealth, and unpredictability. Coordinated by advanced AI systems, these fleets operated like a single, cohesive organism, capable of outthinking even the most experienced alien tacticians. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders made one thing clear to their people: this was not just about vengeance. The war was about proving humanity's place in the galaxy, about ensuring the Council's oppressive regime could no longer silence those who dared to seek freedom. It was a fight for survival, yes, but also for a future where no species would ever again suffer the fate of their diplomat. The first strike came not from humanity, but from the Council. Misjudging Earth's readiness, they sent a fleet to the solar system, aiming to crush resistance before it could begin. What they found, however, was a planet that had transformed itself into a fortress. Defense grids spanning the globe lit up, intercepting the Council's initial assault. Humanity's counterattack was swift and brutal, utilizing every resource at their disposal. The Council fleet, expecting an easy victory, was blindsided by Earth's ferocity and ingenuity. As the wreckage of alien ships burned in the void, humanity's leaders delivered a single message to the Galactic Council: "You drew first blood. Now we will finish this war." It was not a threat, it was a promise, one backed by the determination of a united species. The Council, for the first time in millennia, felt the stirrings of fear. Their underestimation of humanity had set the stage for a conflict they were unprepared to face. The first coordinated strikes by humanity sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Small Council outposts, once seen as invulnerable, fell swiftly to precision attacks. These strikes weren't just random acts of rebellion. They were calculated moves designed to disrupt supply lines and sow chaos within the Council's ranks. By targeting key nodes in their sprawling empire, humanity exploited weaknesses that had been hidden under centuries of complacency. One of the most devastating blows came during an assault on a critical Council shipyard orbiting a distant moon. This facility, responsible for producing the gargantuan warships that had long symbolized the Council's dominance, was thought to be impenetrable. But Earth's forces, using stealth technology and insider intelligence from their alien allies, infiltrated the system undetected. In a daring maneuver, they disabled the station's power grid, rendering its defenses useless, and destroyed it in a fiery spectacle that left Council strategists scrambling to respond. The Council's immediate reaction was one of fury. They dispatched larger fleets to crush the rebellion, deploying their most advanced ships to enforce their will. But humanity had anticipated this, luring these fleets into carefully orchestrated traps. Asteroid fields, gravity wells, and ambushes by Earth's nimble strike teams turned the galaxy's most fearsome armadas into smoldering debris. The Council's forces, designed for brute strength and overwhelming numbers, struggled to adapt to humanity's hit-and-run tactics. Back on Earth, the successes fueled not just hope, but a sense of inevitability. The initial fears of annihilation were replaced with a growing confidence. Humanity was proving that the Council, despite its grandeur, was not infallible. Every victory sent a message: the oppressed could fight back, and the mighty could fall. Across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion grew louder. Species once cowed into submission began to wonder if they too could stand against the Council. The psychological toll on the Council was immense. For the first time in millennia, they found themselves on the defensive, their aura of invincibility shattered. Internal divisions began to surface as accusations flew among the Council's members. Some blamed humanity's unexpected ingenuity, others accused one another of negligence. What had once been a unified front was now fracturing under the pressure of war. Humanity, however, was far from complacent. Each victory was a hard-fought battle, and losses were inevitable. Council fleets, though slow to adapt, remained formidable, and their retaliation was fierce. Several human colonies, hastily established on the fringes of the solar system, were wiped out in brutal counterattacks. Each loss was a stark reminder that the war was far from won. Amid the conflict, Earth's leadership faced impossible choices. Resources were stretched thin, and every decision carried the weight of billions of lives. The president, who had become the face of the resistance, worked tirelessly with her advisors, balancing military strategy with the need to maintain morale. "We cannot afford to lose sight of why we fight," she reminded them during one of many late-night sessions. "If we become like them, ruthless and unyielding, then we've already lost." Her words resonated deeply, guiding humanity's approach to war. While the Council's doctrine was one of domination, humanity sought alliances. They reached out to oppressed species, offering not just liberation but a vision of a galaxy built on cooperation and mutual respect. These efforts bore fruit as more alien factions joined the fight, bringing with them unique technologies and insights that further tilted the balance of power. One such ally, a species known as the Vrin, proved particularly invaluable. Small and unassuming, the Vrin were masters of data manipulation and cyber warfare. With their help, humanity gained access to critical Council communications, uncovering plans and vulnerabilities that would have otherwise remained hidden. It was the Vrin who uncovered the existence of the Council's Central Command Station, a massive, heavily fortified structure hidden in a remote sector of the galaxy. The discovery of this station marked a turning point in the war. Earth's leaders knew that taking down the command station would deal a crippling blow to the Council, but the risks were enormous. The station was guarded by the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, and any assault would require a level of coordination that had never been attempted before. Yet, humanity's resolve was unshaken. This was the opportunity they had been waiting for, a chance to strike at the heart of their oppressors. Plans were drawn up in secrecy, the details shared only with a select few. The assault would be the largest operation humanity had ever undertaken, involving not just Earth's fleets, but those of their allies as well. It would require perfect synchronization, the kind of precision that could only be achieved through trust and cooperation. For months, fleets gathered in hidden locations, preparing for the final confrontation. The Council, unaware of the impending attack, continued to spread their forces thin in an effort to quell rebellions across the galaxy. They believed humanity's victories were mere anomalies, the actions of a desperate species destined to fail. This hubris blinded them to the storm gathering on the horizon, a storm that would soon change the fate of the galaxy forever. The assault on the Council's Central Command Station began with a silence that belied the chaos to come. Humanity's combined fleet, accompanied by their alien allies, emerged from the void like a shadow stretching across the stars. Each vessel carried with it not just weapons but the hopes and determination of countless beings who had suffered under the Council's reign. The fleet moved as one, every ship guided by a shared purpose, to bring an end to the tyranny that had ruled the galaxy for far too long. The Council's defenses were formidable, as expected. Automated turrets bristled along the station's exterior, and layers of shielding shimmered like an impenetrable shell. Surrounding it was a massive fleet of warships, their engines glowing with ominous light as they formed an unyielding barrier. This was the Council's final line of defense, the culmination of centuries of dominance and fear. But humanity had planned for this. The first wave was not an attack, but a diversion. Smaller, nimble ships darted toward the outer edges of the fleet, drawing fire and scattering the Council's forces. These ships, piloted by skilled crews, relied on speed and unpredictability to evade destruction, keeping the enemy distracted while the main force advanced. Behind them, Earth's larger warships unleashed salvos of precision strikes, targeting weak points in the Council's formation. Coordinated by advanced AI systems, each shot found its mark, tearing through the enemy's lines with ruthless efficiency. The Council, caught off guard by the sheer audacity of the assault, scrambled to respond. Their warships moved to intercept the human fleet, but their rigid tactics proved to be their downfall. Where they relied on overwhelming force, humanity adapted on the fly, using agility and creativity to exploit every mistake. The battlefield became a chaotic dance of fire and destruction, with human ships weaving through the gaps in the Council's defenses. As the fleets clashed, a specialized strike team moved into position. This team, composed of humanity's best and bolstered by their alien allies, had one mission: to breach the station's defenses and disable its command systems. Using cloaking technology and the Vrin's expertise in cyber warfare, they slipped past the chaos undetected, approaching the station's surface with precision. Once inside, they faced a labyrinth of corridors and heavily armed guards, each step forward a battle against impossible odds. Meanwhile, the main fleet pressed its attack, steadily breaking through the Council's lines. Losses were heavy on both sides, but humanity's resolve never wavered. Every pilot, every soldier knew the stakes of this battle. They weren't just fighting for Earth, they were fighting for every species that had suffered under the Council's rule. The memory of the diplomats' sacrifice burned brightly in their minds, driving them forward even as the odds seemed insurmountable. Inside the station, the strike team reached the central command hub. The room was a stark contrast to the chaos outside, cold, sterile, and dominated by a massive control interface. The team's engineers worked quickly, planting devices designed to override the station's systems. As alarms blared and reinforcements closed in, the team held their ground, buying precious seconds for the operation to succeed. It was a desperate fight, every member knowing they might not make it out alive. The turning point came when the devices activated, sending a surge of energy through the station's systems. Shield generators flickered and died, leaving the station vulnerable. Across the battlefield, human and allied ships seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated assault on the exposed structure. Explosions rippled across the station's surface as its defenses crumbled, each blast a step closer to victory. In the command hub, the strike team transmitted one final message before evacuating: "The station is compromised. Finish this." Their words were met with cheers across the fleet, a rallying cry that spurred every ship into action. The Council's forces, realizing the battle was lost, began to retreat, their once unshakable confidence shattered. The final blow came as Earth's flagship, a massive vessel equipped with experimental weaponry, delivered a direct hit to the station's core. The explosion was blinding, a supernova of light that marked the end of the Council's reign. The station, once a symbol of power and fear, disintegrated in a cascade of debris, its remnants scattering across the void. As the dust settled, the human fleet regrouped, their losses heavy but their spirits unbroken. Messages of victory echoed across the galaxy, reaching the ears of every species that had suffered under the Council's rule. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was free from tyranny. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as the news spread. The president addressed the planet, her voice carrying the weight of all they had endured. "We have proven," she said, "that no power, no matter how vast, can extinguish the light of freedom. This is not just our victory, it is a victory for every being who has ever dreamed of a better future. Together, we have shown the galaxy what humanity stands for." But even as the cheers echoed across Earth, there was a quiet understanding among its leaders and allies. The war was over, but the work had just begun. The galaxy, fractured and scarred, needed rebuilding. Trust had to be forged between species that had once been enemies. Humanity, now a symbol of hope, bore the responsibility of guiding this new era. In the end, the diplomat's sacrifice had not been in vain. His final words had ignited a fire that toppled an empire. And as humanity looked to the stars, they carried with them a promise that freedom, hard-won and fiercely protected, would never again be taken for granted.